Alex Gluz here. I'm the host of Revenue Engine podcast, where I talk with top leaders in business, marketing, sales, tech, SaaS, and more. We have a great guest for you today. This episode is brought to you by Team Monroe Digital. At Team Monroe, we build world-class revenue engines for B2B SaaS and tech companies. What that means is we do everything behind the scenes to generate you tons of qualified leads, opportunities, and customers. We build highly effective marketing systems and scale them profitably through our demand generation and paid media strategies. We think scientific on how to scale your demand and revenue. We bring decades of experience and expertise. Email me at alex@tmonroe.com or visit tmonroe.com today to schedule a strategy session or learn more about our mission. We have a great guest for you today. Super excited. Hi, Dhiraj. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you.
Yes. Can you do a brief intro of who you are and what you do?
Absolutely, Alex. So Dhiraj Kumar, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Dashlane. Dashlane is a global cybersecurity firm. We're in the business of credential security. I've been there about 4.5, 5 years. Dashlane is a business company that serves about 5,000 businesses globally, from large enterprises to small businesses and millions of consumers. We protect businesses from credential threat, which is the leading cause of breaches in today's world. We're in an exciting time, launching new products and solving the problem in new ways. So I'm excited to be here and excited to talk about all things marketing with you.
So let's jump into Dashlane and cybersecurity. So cybersecurity market loves to scare people, but fear can make people freeze or tune out. How do you get somebody to act without making them feel it's already too late?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think brands who do it well are far more sophisticated in how they approach the general problem of cybersecurity, which is all about mitigating risk, right? It's dealing with bad guys or bad people or bad outcomes. One of the organizing principles we use internally is sophistication. We want to be a sophisticated brain. And what that means is two things. One, the people we're dealing with on the other side are fairly sophisticated people who understand risk, deal with it every day. So you have to acknowledge the problem and state it, but you have to do it with very intention and detail and precision. So when we talk about the problem we are very focused on is credential security, credential breaches, we don't shy away from just stating what the problem is, backing it with real thought behind it and data behind it. But the other approach we have taken is, in terms of how we go to market, is talking to our approach. So we brand ourselves as a proactive credential security platform. And what that means is we are converting a defensive approach, enabling a client from being a defensive to an offensive approach. And not just in theory, but in practice. And so that's not a fear-based approach. It's acknowledging fear, but giving control in the hands of the customer, what they can do about it. And do about it in real terms, the things they can solve, the risks they can see before these things become threat, the actions they can take to remediate risk before bad things happen. So I think our approach is that you have to be very, very sophisticated in your conversation when you're dealing with cybersecurity. Don't shy away from stating the problems and the risks and the issues, but be intentional and give an answer. Like, what are you doing? How are you helping? That gives customer one control. And the last thing I would say is you have to have a point of view. So we are very much we would state the bigger issues. We will have a point of view on the risk of AI, and you have to thread the needle between being sort of bombastic and being, too staid in your approach. It's okay to be bold in your point of view.
So people act when they feel capable, not terrified. And especially in security, simple explanation could outperform dramatic ones 10 to 1 because, you can grab somebody attention, what we call reptilian brain, but the logical brain will will kick in, right? So you need to have a point of view. You need to be able to tell the story, and you need to have a great product. Let's be honest.
Yeah, just the story doesn't. And just to add to one other things that we have been observing in our category and broadly cyber is cyber has matured into almost a business function. So if you go talk to a CISO today, and I'm sure you've talked to them, they're almost business leaders and not technical leaders. And they are thinking in many levels about protection, investment, strategies, policies, operational sophistication. And so they think of cyber and cyber stack and the cyber approach in terms of return on investment. It's like a business would think, like, I got to do these things. And so you have to start talking about not only the thing we just talked about, but talk in business terms. I think this investment, how will they pay off? How will they help in the broader cyber approach? Is it operationally simple to deploy and execute? Will there be adoption? Does it work with other things? So I think that's another element of how we talk in cyber, and the problem we are solving is certainly talk about the problems, the bad things that could happen and how we protect, but also the operational and the business angle of our solution and how that helps their business.
Yeah, and it's definitely about risk mitigation. Is again the other one, especially with everything going on in the world today. You want to have this trusted partner who's going to take part of the risk. You might find cheaper alternatives or try to do this in-house, but is it really worth the risk for your company, for your stakeholders, for your customers, right? Is it really worth the risk? And you're gonna say, that's we want to mitigate the risk. We need a partner who's gonna be aligned with us, who's gonna be proactive, who's gonna, guide us when we need guidance and support it when we need support.
Yeah, I think every CISO today is thinking about the investment, and there are two big things on their mind, which you won't fault them for that. One is credibility. I mean, am I going to bring this software in or this technology in and confidently back up that this is going to work? Is it going to create more issues for me? And the second is, what kind of return am I going to get? Does it work with what I already have? They all have to. I mean, there's so much investment gone in. Every leader is being asked to be efficient with their dollar investment. So can each dollar go further? Can you solve multiple problems? Do you work with things that I already have, or you're just a standalone thing? So I think those things become important, and become important in how we talk to our customers, what kind of programs we run.
You mentioned something interesting when we chatted before, that you're drawn to businesses solving problems that haven't been solved before. What's the hardest part of marketing? Sometimes people don't fully people understand yet.
There are two very hard problems. One is when you're trying to sell something that doesn't exist, is not clear, it's not been solved before. There's a lot of dissonance about the thing that you were mentioned earlier. Who are we? What are we selling? What problems we solve? What is the value we deliver? What are the outcomes? And there's a lot of dissonance of that internally, as I said before, and externally. The hardest problem to solve when we dealt with that Facebook and PayPal and here is, if I take an example at Facebook, early in the day, we thought we are a brain platform, and that's how we understood it internally and externally. And there was a lot of dissonance about, are we a brain platform or are we a performance marketing platform? And there wasn't a lot of belief that we were performance. But our customers let us, especially some of the most innovative and smallest companies who got on the platform and started using us for performance and finding success. And so the hard thing is to start understanding what is the value you provide, who you are, and start interpreting signals you're getting from the market, because there's a lot of noise in the market at that point. And so I think we learn, and I think over time, why I'm successful going into every new industries and applying that first principle is starting to really pay attention to some of the smallest signals where you're seeing real successful, repeatable success. And taking that, it's like pulling a thread and building on it. And that's how we actually uncovered that actually Facebook could be a tremendous performance marketing platform. Similar thing happened in PayPal too, where we uncovered how peer-to-peer is not just a kind of an interesting thing, but a core peer-to-peer payments is a core behavior which people with consumers use not just to share money when they're having coffee, but to do all kinds of things: send gifts, lend each other money, share gifts, do celebration, and so on and so forth. And so there's a lot of these interesting insights you get during this phase when you're solving a problem that hasn't been solved, that you have to uncover by really paying attention to the minutiae of customer behavior. The second part is you also don't know beyond this story is how do you go to market, what channel might work, what play might work, what strategy might work. One of the examples I remember from Facebook days was as we starting to scale our advertising platform, one of the hurdles we found is that the creative team wasn't on board with it. And you got to remember, Facebook is a very different ad format than all other ad formats, the display ad format. And Mark and Cheryl were very diligent about, we are a different platform based on authentic audiences, a clean interface, a place where people come and engage. So ad formats are very different. And creative teams are very used to either search or the display formats of that day. And so we uncovered, you can convince the CMO all you want, you can convince the media team, but if there isn't a creative team really building ads for this format, it won't work. And to solve for that was to build creative programs to really get the creative community on board. And that's something you have to solve in the context of this new platform that had emerged. And you have to kind of solve these new problems that never been solved. And now if you talk to Facebook or any of these platforms, creative support is built into how these platforms go to market. So, and anyway, so I think those are kind of the hard problem you have to solve. Outcomes too, there's so many different outcomes you think you could drive, but you have to get, it takes a discovery process to what outcome matter to them the most in the context of all the other things they're doing. And that's a discovery process. That's another big thing that I've learned over the career, especially in technology and high growth, is rapid learning is almost essential to be successful because the dynamism of the kind of things we're working on.
So one thing has been kind of on my mind. So how to structure best demand gen campaigns. So let me try to explain this. So we're really trying to understand how we can structure the campaigns in a way that they don't just very generic. So we're trying to approach this, who we're not going to target, who we're not going to message, who this message is not going to apply to? Because when you try everything, especially in paid, you end up with nothing. You have too many channels, too many messaging idea. The budget spreads thin, the message gets watered down, and the leads that come in, they don't convert because they're not a good fit, or there is a misconception. What are you offering? So the clients that see the biggest results are the ones willing to say, we're only going after the one segment with this one message or this one or two channels. That focus is what makes demand gen actually work very well. How do you approach that in Dashlane? When you're building out a demand gen plan, what gets cut first?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great observation, and it's easy to say because you get pushed internally. Why don't you do this too? Why aren't you showing up here? So there's a push for every marketing department, not just in terms of outward but inward pressure. I think one of the core thing is for us to getting closer and closer to understanding which ICP or the segments of consumers we are focused on. I think that the advantage for a company like Dashlane, say, versus a PayPal or Facebook is we are much more focused in the problem we are solving, the customers we are solving for. And so we don't have to worry about the amount of different types of products and solutions that a much bigger company has. And that allows us a little bit thinking about what kind of programs we should be investing in. Now, I would say there's never a silver bullet. There isn't one thing that will kind of get you there in terms of demand gen. At the same time, isn't 100 things either. So one of the mental models we use is, what are your anchor plays? What are your anchor strategies? What are the core that are foundational to the kind of customers we are trying to reach and convert, where they are and what they care about? So for us, credibility. So we're selling into enterprise buyers, cybersecurity product, IT is certainly the anchor buyer, but we also increasingly are introducing product that matter to information security and security teams who are mitigating risk, who are doing alerts, who are doing security operations. So we're very clear on the two groups that are most material. Credibility matters, so PR matters for us, and what we call digital PR. So social media and PR, we think of it together, and all the application we do of the PR. I think you have to have constant PR and story to be credible in the market. Analyst matters to us. Companies like Gartner are very intimate to the customers. They have very good understanding, but also they shape some of the thinking in terms of new vendors for these clients. So that's an anchor strategy. In terms of media, I think over the years we've learned that search still matters tremendously, both across the funnel. So it's not just bottom of the funnel. Sometimes discovery, and sometimes and LinkedIn matters a lot in the business we are in. And so those are two anchor channels. And then we believe we need to bring one of the things that are underappreciated is first-party data. To be very good at going and reaching, a lot of folks focus a lot of energy on third-party data, but we miss sometimes our first-party data. People who are visiting our site, people who are in our database, people who are engaging with our content, and getting really smart at that. And so those are some of the core things we focus on. We have to be really good at, we have to constantly iterate on it. And then the other approach we take is around those core strategies, pick 2 to 3 things every 6 months that we're gonna try to experiment and get good at. So AI SEO or AEO is one of them for us. Chatbot, AI chatbot is another one of them for us. Advocacy is a huge play, so that's another big one. So I think we think about core strategies and very intentional plays around it that we invest in that'll give us the biggest bang for the buck.
So kind of looking at this year, and if you had to bet on one growth lever in 2026, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think there isn't one particular one, but a few. Um, we have about 25,000 businesses. We have 2,000 global enterprises on our platform. We have very high retention. We've introduced new product to the customers who are very happy with us and really kind of love the innovation we're bringing to the marketplace around credential security. And I think we recognize there's a lot of latent advocacy of our customer, of our products that we can tap into. And so it's really kind of unpacking that advocacy would just release a lot of interesting data from our customers about what they think about the benefits we have provided, great quotes, great case studies. And I think that's a huge part of the play. It's an untapped potential. We have a lot of channels active, is filling that channel with great content where customers are advocating for us and using that for other mechanisms, referral programs, other things. So that's one thing. Second thing, as I mentioned, we have a lot of programming going on, a lot of campaigns across up and down the funnel. But we have to get much smarter at understanding where people are in the journey. And as I mentioned before, we have tremendous amount of first-party data, but I don't think we understand them as well. You know, we are doing programming like webinars, we're launching reports, we have a lot of thought pieces, we are launching new products, and then we have a lot of visitation on our site. And, you know, because of the nature of a consumer business, we also have a lot of people who know us from a consumer product. But we don't have a real solid understanding of all these bits and pieces in a holistic fashion. Like, they're embedded in there are smart signals about customers and businesses who might be really interested in you, but you're not seeing it. So I think a great investment in first-party data, really understanding it, is a huge leverage in terms of making everything we do far more effective, far more precise, and a greater return on investment. Those are just two examples of kind of things we are focused on. Obviously, AEO is a big play for every marketer right now, as you know. Like, how's the LLMs? Are people shifting their search to LLM? How do we tackle that? How do we show up there? There's a lot of conversation we're having with firms in Silicon Valley. That's a very active play. I think there's a lot of opportunities to think differently about search and how people discover us.